Good evening, and welcome to the March 25th Falmouth Conservation Commission hearing. Before we begin, I'd like to ask if you have phones and such, electronic devices, please silence them. All right. During the meeting, we have a new records keeper right now. Public comment is encouraged. If you do so, be recognized by the chair, go up to the podium, identify yourself for the record, and then proceed with what questions you have or comments. First is, on the evening tonight, is minutes of March 18th.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I found the minutes to be materially in order. There are a number of things that are in minor need of correction, but Denise, you did a fantastic job. It's impressive.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we'll give you those, okay? That's Mary's motion.
Second.
Okay, and Russell's second. Any further comment? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is continued request for determination of applicability. This is the permitting that staff goes out and gives us a recommendation. This is a lesser of the two permitting processes this evening. And what you want to hear is a negative determination. When there's a negative determination on a determination of applicability, that means your project can go on as presented. A positive is something that requires more information. The first is the 300 committee, Thomas B. Landers Road, Hatchville, Mass. For permission to remove small pine and oak regeneration within the existing cranberry bog and to selectively control invasive trees, shrubs, and vines outside the bog.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending -2 under the statement of bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
That's Russell's motion, Mary's second. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is the 300 Committee, Pumping Station Road, Hatchville, Mass. For permission to create a .7-mile loop, 3 to 4 foot wide hiking trail, all work by hand.
Again, Mr. Chairman, we've reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the statement of bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Michael's motion, Russell's second. Is there any comment from the audience on this project? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next, the 300 Committee, 389 Gifford Street, Mass., Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove and control invasive species throughout the property by hand.
Staff recommends -2 under the statement of bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Mary's motion, Mike's second. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on that? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 207 Coonamessett Circle, Hatchville, Mass. For permission to vista prune.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've reviewed the project. -2 under the bylaw, -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Mary's motion, Russell's second. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 201 Coonamessett Circle, Hatchville, Mass. For permission to vista prune.
Again, -2 under the bylaw, -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
That would be Michael's motion, Russell's second. Any comment from the audience? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Those were continued, and boy, am I glad they're off. Next is request for a hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And before I call the first one up, I'd just like to remind a few more people who've walked in that if you want to make comment, you're more than welcome, but you'd be addressed by the chair. You go up to the podium and address who you are for the record. All right? The first one on this evening is 156 Grand Ave, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair and maintain the existing stone riprap by filling voids and installing 120 linear feet of vinyl sheething, landward of the existing stone riprap, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Do you have any comments at this time, Jen?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Holmes & McGrath. We're the engineers and land surveyors for the applicant. The project before you is sort of like a maintenance to the existing riprap. Resources on or within 100 feet of the project are land under the ocean, coastal bank. There's a salt marsh to the south of the proposed work. The entire property is within land subject to coastal storm flowage. There has been some sinkholes on the top of the existing riprap that's been noticed, and the applicant would like to address that by installing vinyl sheeting behind the existing riprap, but also reinforcing any observable holes or depression that are being surfacing to the riprap surface and to the lawn area. The installation of the vinyl sheeting is going to be completely within the property. We're going to excavate about 2 feet behind the riprap. We're going to look for existing voids, fill those voids with trap rock, install the vinyl sheeting, the remaining of the depth of 6 feet, and then backfilling. The proposed vinyl sheeting is not going to be exposed to surface. Everything's going to be loam and seeded to existing conditions. The access to the project will be through Grand Avenue over lawn areas, as is depicted on the plans, through this northern area down to the top of the riprap. All of the proposed work is proposed from the top of the riprap. There may be some workers working from the water side. At low tide, there is the exposure of the bottom of the pond there. So there can be some workers from the water side to fill the voids that are within the riprap. The existing deck to the back of the house will have to be removed for the construction of the vinyl sheeting, but will be rebuilt in kind. We're not proposing to expand the footprint of any of the existing structures. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Ken? Mike?
One, you agree that something should be done, there's plenty of voids, you're correct there. Your narrative says the sheeting will be driven a minimum of 13 feet, while your plans say 6 feet.
It's 6 feet.
My concern there is you don't have too much toe. If it moves, what keeps that sheeting in place?
The intention of the vinyl sheeting is not structural in terms of holding back the grades on the backyard. It's just to prevent filtration of the sediments through the riprap. What we're proposing to do is dig a trench about 2 feet from existing grades and drive an 8-foot sheeting, if I'm not mistaken, from the plans. the sheeting will be driven to a depth that's deeper than the shore edge in front of the riprap. So we will be below what's exposed on the water side of the riprap. And then everything else will be backfilled. So we're not using the vinyl sheeting as a structure to hold the bank. So we don't have any problems with that, but it is not 13 feet to be driven.
Okay. And access is going to be an issue, and controlling that excavated material, so we don't get,
Right, there is gonna be a trench, a 2-foot deep trench, 2 foot wide. All the excavated material will be on the upland side of the trench, because the trench is gonna happen right at the top of the riprap, landward of the riprap. So all the excavated pile will be on the upland side. So it also makes it easier to backfill once the sheeting is installed.
flat and sandy, yes, I think that's acceptable to me. No other questions?
Thank you. Russ?
Excavator, Raul, is that what they're planning to use for this project?
The intention was actually with a backhoe. There are some adapters that you can add to the arm of the backhoe that can drive these sheetings. The soils here are sandy soils, which are the best soils to drive sheeting in.
And is that a cesspool or a septic tank that you depicted on the plan here? It's right near the construction access.
These are cesspools.
Cesspools.
The contractor can use metal plates.
Okay.
The covers are to grade, so they can always know exactly where they are and protect them during construction.
Okay. I'm good.
Mary?
How many days of work do you think this is?
Don't really have an idea of how long it will take to perform this work. Judging from a similar project in North Falmouth, it took about 2 weeks for the installation of the sheeting, but it also included some major riprap reconstruction, which is not the case here.
Right.
But I wouldn't dare to specify a duration of the construction.
And in terms of the digging of the trench, would you be doing that in sections or what? What I'm getting at is how long are we gonna have a big pile of dirt sitting around potentially causing trouble?
For ease of installation, it's best to open the entire trench and then come back and dry the sheeting. The sheeting, they interlock with each other, but they could work on manageable lengths, say 50-foot sections that will probably divide the overall installation in 3 sections, which makes it easier so the piles of dirt for the trenching are not in the way for the entire run. And it would make sense for the contractor to do work on manageable sections than the entire thing.
I'm also thinking, I mean, if this could potentially take 2 weeks, things could happen during the course of 2 weeks that could disturb those piles, and we may need some kind of methodology just for either controlling that or avoiding that situation. And you also said no heavy equipment from the base of the bank. Will there be any equipment at all that you anticipate needing down there?
The only thing I anticipate is just workers with the chink stones so that they can.
They would hand
place
each
them.
other the-
Right. I can see chink stone falling off or maybe being dumped so that the workers can take them and put them in the voids, but no machinery in terms of big equipment. I do want to go back to the section about the methodology on sheet 2. We do state that all work shall be performed in manageable sections.
Okay.
Bullet number 6. It is not an extensive sheeting, so they can probably either partition it into 4 sections, 3 sections, whichever the contractor probably feels more comfortable that they can complete within that time frame and have enough backfill so that erosion does not become a problem.
Okay. All right, and also you talk about not leaving anything unprotected at the end of any given workday, so that's fine. I think I'm fine.
This letter from the Division of Marine Fisheries, appropriate containment techniques should be used to prevent construction debris from moving it into a little pond. I think we've already addressed that. Right now, I know myself, I have something stuck in my claw as far as site management, and that, I think the methodology is doable. Do you have a contractor picked out?
You know,
Okay, well, we're gonna be highlighting number 6 on your plan, and there'll be references to that. And when we deliberate, I have written down a few more notes on the front, protecting the septic system, and again, referencing your methodology, and adhering to that. That's gonna be a theme, just so we're all on the same page, it's gonna be a theme for quite some time about site management. It's been very disappointing for this board in the recent history on how sites have been, and debris, and how careless, and I hate using strong language, but there's no other reason not to. I'm just tired, we work awfully hard and volunteer and go out to sites, and to see improper site management is irritating. So, come one, come all. Everybody's gonna have the same lecture. So, I'm off the soapbox right now.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second?
Okay, before we close the hearing, is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you, Ralph.
Next, when I find my agenda. I stole yours, Russ.
Figures.
Is 26 Drift Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to demolish and remove the existing building on Lot 2, and to construct and maintain a single-family house with garage under, deck, shared, denitrifying sewage disposal system on Lot 1, install a pervious driveway, restoration plantings, dry wells, utilities, maintain the existing path, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening.
Good evening. Through the chair, for the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney with an office in Sandwich, and I'm here tonight representing the applicants Walter Platt and Julie Platt, who are the current owners of record of the property. Mr. Platt is here tonight in the back row, and relevant to my presentation, also with him are his parents, who have been on this property for the last 75 years. Part of our team tonight is the last presenter, Raul Riviera from Holmes & McGrath, and also Mark Maganello from LEC Environmental Consultants is here. I would like to give a brief introduction to how we see the case, and then Mr. Rivera will go through the details, and Mr. Maganello is going to address compliance with at least one of the DCPC regulations, which we think is the focus of our case. So, beginning, the applicants own 2 residential lots on Drift Road that are within the Black Beach Sippawisset Marsh DCPC. Both of the lots have been owned by the Platt family for the last 75 years. The lot on the west side that faces the ocean is improved with a single-family dwelling that the Platts use on a seasonal basis. The lot on the other side of the road has a garage, a driveway, and a cleared area. And all of these conditions have existed there for at least the last 75 years. As you can imagine, the town's tax valuation of the properties has steadily risen over the years, particularly in the recent years. And as a result, the tax assessed to the property has gone up rather dramatically. In order for the Platt family to keep this property in their family, they seek to remove the garage that is across the street and construct in its place a modest dwelling in order to rent during the summer months to develop some income to pay the taxes. Some of the members, having heard what I just said, may be familiar because this project, a similar project, I should say, has been proposed within the last few years. Back in June of 2012, the Platts appeared before the commission with a notice of intent proposing to demolish the garage and remove it and replace in an area to the south of the existing garage a new single-family home with a garage under, a deck, and a Title V septic system and a driveway. That project had proposed limits of work of 80 feet from a coastal dune and 101 feet from a salt marsh. After holding several hearings on the project, the commission denied it, and the primary reason was non-compliance with one of the DCPC regulations, specifically 1039.7. And let me just segue to refresh the board's memory what these regulations are. In the DCPC, there are regulations that limit the amount a lot may be developed. There's an as-of-right ability to develop up to 6,000 square feet, but then there are some buffer regulations that are an overlay to that. And 1039.7 specifically states that a buffer width of at least 200 feet and no more than 300 feet must be present unless otherwise specified in 1039. The very next regulatory provision, 1039, Section 8, says, notwithstanding the provisions of the foregoing section, the distances specified in FWR 1039.7 may be modified in a manner consistent with the provisions of FWR 1018, which is your standard buffer zone regulation, but in no case shall the buffer distance be less than 100 feet. The commission's decision the last time said that the buffer needed to be 200 feet, and it referenced 1039.7. At the hearing, the Platts did show clearly on their plans that the buffer zone was 101 feet from the salt marsh, and it was self-evident from the plans that they were asking the commission to exercise its authority to allow a less than 200-foot buffer. But the commission denied it and did not specifically address 1039.8. So the Platts decided to exercise their appellate rights after the commission denied the project and appealed to the DEP and to Superior Court. The DEP issued a superseding order of conditions for the project, but the court did not. The court affirmed the commission's denial. At the hearing, Associate Town Council argued on your behalf that one of the flaws in the Platts proposal the last time was that they did not specifically request the commission to exercise its authority to modify the buffer down to 1039.7. The Platts argued that it was self-evident from the plans and from the assertions that were at the hearing, but again, Town Council said you need to specifically request it. So based upon that and other reasons, the Superior Court affirmed the commission's decision. It is very noteworthy from the commission, the Superior Court's decision, which is included as part of the record in this particular case, that the court specifically found that the commission has the discretionary authority under 1039, Section 8, to modify the buffer in the DCPC from the 200-foot minimum in Section 7 down to buffer zones required by 1018. In this particular case, the driving buffer zone under 1018 is the buffer to salt marsh, which is 100 feet. Obviously, the Platts were not happy with the court's decision, but they took it as a learning experience, and we read carefully what the court said, what Town Council had argued, and we put our pencils to the paper again, and we decided that we could attempt another application. So here we are tonight with a new project, and this one specifically contains a letter from me requesting the commission to exercise its authority under 1039.8, which addresses what Town Council said was the flaw in the last application, or one of the flaws. But we are not simply merely reapplying, having kind of plugged that hole. The Platts listened very carefully to all the comments that the commission made about the project the last time, and we have substantially redesigned the project to further minimize the impacts. You're going to hear from Mr. Rivera what a lot of these, or what all of these changes are, but I want to kind of give a preview so that you know the differences between the last project and this project when you listen to his presentation. So first of all, the proposed project, by moving the structure from the area to the south of the garage to essentially the same footprint that the existing garage is on, we have been able to substantially reduce the disturbance in the existing vegetation, which is one of the goals of DCPC regulations. Next, and very significant to our proposed project, is that we are proposing to not have a septic system on the lot where the proposed house is being sited, but instead to voluntarily upgrade the septic system of the existing dwelling. The existing septic disposal on that particular lot currently consists of 3 cesspools, one of which is in a dune. We intend to propose to discontinue those cesspools and replace them with an innovative technology design, which the Board of Health actually approved on Monday night. Mr. Riviere is the expert on this, so I'm just going to touch upon what we see as the substantial improvement from the last project to this project is, 1, having no septic system on the lot, 2, moving what was proposed before farther away from the salt marsh onto the lot across the street. And most specifically and significantly is that the proposed system will reduce the nitrogen loading by 93% over existing conditions. So we're going to add 2 bedrooms in the new house, but even with the 2 new bedrooms, the new system will take out 93% more nitrogen than is currently going into the ground with the existing house and garage. The proposed project will also alter approximately 1,500 square feet less. The last time the project sought to disturb 6,000 square feet, which is what 1039 suggests one is allowed to do by right. This project is around 4,700. The new project that's before you now actually proposes some planting in the existing disturbed area to make the buffer meet 1018. Currently, the existing conditions are less than 100 feet from the salt marsh. With this proposed project, it will be a minimum of 100 feet, and on average, it will be 168 feet. The current project proposes to keep the driveway where it currently exists, where the last project proposed to move it. And overall, the development of the proposed project will increase only 2.5% over the existing developed area, and 92.5% of the lot will remain in a naturally vegetated state. Very significant to our project is it's our contention that it complies with all applicable performance standards, with the one exception being the 200-foot buffer requirement in 1039-7. But as you heard me say in my presentation, your regulations specifically allow the board to modify that. And this is not a request for a variance. Your regulations allow you to modify the buffer as long as you're satisfied that there's no adverse impacts and the environment is adequately protected. We're here asking you to exercise that discretion tonight and allow this project with the buffers shown on the plan. We believe that this project is a substantial improvement over the last one. We believe that it's consistent with your DCPC regulations in that development is minimized on this lot and the environmental interests and resource areas are adequately protected with the buffers that are proposed. Having said that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Rivera, and then Mr. Maganello will briefly follow up after him.
Thank you.
For the record, Raul Lizardi from Holmes & McGrath, engineers and land surveyors for the applicant. I'll go briefly through the design of the site in terms of civil engineering and surveying. The proposed site redevelopment is a redevelopment on Lot 2. There is an existing garage and existing disturbances of over 3,200 square feet on the lot. We're proposing a single-family home within a residential district in the Falmouth, in accordance to the Falmouth zoning bylaws. The proposed disturbance is on 4,800 square feet. It's an increase of approximately 1,600 square feet of disturbance within Lot 2. That means that 1,600 square feet of existing vegetation is going to be removed. That accounts to approximately 2% on the lot. The proposed natural buffer that we're proposing goes in average about 168 feet across the property measured from the salt marsh towards the development. The existing natural buffer is approximately averaging 172 feet. So it's in average a reduction of 4 feet to that buffer. This project is proposing to completely revegetate the Falmouth Wetland Regulation Zone A to the salt marsh, and also Zone A to the edge of the dune across a developed road called Drift Road. There is a proposed limit of work as a silt fence to restrict the area of construction activities within the development. In terms of stormwater and erosion, the development will not increase any stormwater on the site or any erosion that currently exists on the site. To protect the resources, we propose dry wells to contain all the roof runoff from the proposed residence, something that is not currently provided with the existing roof on the garage. The existing dense vegetation within the edge of the salt marsh to the proposed development provides enough groundwater surface protection to erosion, and the grades on the site are not too steep that will cause concerns for erosion. The proposed and existing grades between the front of the proposed house towards Drift Road are not going to change. We're still going to continue to show grading towards Drift Road. So that area between the proposed development and the existing road is not going to add any stormwater runoff towards the salt marsh. The proposed pervious driveway is in the same location as the existing driveway to the garage, so there is no adverse impacts in terms of the driveway. The proposed stormwater patterns between the 100 foot and the 200 feet to that salt marsh are not going to be changed. The proposed project proposes a shared denitrifying septic system between the two houses, the proposed house on Lot 2 and the existing house on Lot 1. The shared system will be located on Lot 1. The closest component of the system to the salt marsh is 190 feet approximately. The closest point of the leaching area of the system to that same salt marsh is 220 feet. The proposed system also discontinues or removes the existing leaching pits, 3 of them, one of which is located within a coastal dune. None of the proposed septic system components, except for a portion of the first septic tank, is located within a coastal dune. The advanced nitrifying septic system, will provide a 93% reduction in total nitrogen into the groundwater, which is a great improvement to groundwater quality from existing conditions on the site, even if it is treating 2 residences rather than just 1. The proposed system also provides 4-foot separation from the bottom of the leaching system to the high groundwater, something that currently does not exist on the site with the 3 leaching pits. We estimate that there's at most 2 feet separation from the existing septic systems to the groundwater. Proposed replanting is required in order to reestablish existing vegetated areas in Lot 1. The installation of the septic system will require the removal of vegetation of approximately 880 square feet, and that same area will be replanted, including 6 trees within the area. So there will be no net change on the vegetation on Lot 1. Lot 2, in terms of vegetation, we're going to completely vegetate the Falmouth Buffer Zone A to the salt marsh and to the dune. And we're only removing approximately 1,600 square feet of vegetation in Lot 2, which corresponds to about 2% on the lot. It's our opinion that because of the proposed project improvement and great improvements to the groundwater quality with the proposed shear system, the stormwater patterns and erosions that are not affected by this project, and the reduction of approximately 1,600 square feet, which results in approximately 2% on the lot within the zone of 100 feet to 200 feet from the salt marsh, that this design meets the applicable performance standards of the wetland bylaw. We believe the board should allow this project with the proposed buffers reduced from 200 feet, but in average 168 feet, but no less than 100 feet to the salt marsh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. For the record, I'm Mark Manganella with LEC Environmental Consultants. My role as wetland scientist for this project initially began with a site investigation to review the wetland resource areas on the property. I also reviewed the adjacent upland buffer with a specific focus on the area of disturbance associated with the proposed project. We then reviewed the proposed project in the context of the wetland regulations, prepared a report summarizing our findings, which was attached to the notice of intent. With regard to the performance standards, we agree with the team that the project complies with all the performance standards with the possible exception of FWR 10397. We also agree that FWR 10398 grants the commission discretion to modify the buffer width, and it's our opinion in our report that the commission can exercise its discretion in this case with assurance that there will be no adverse effect to the lands and waters within the DCPC. That's really the focus of the analysis that I provided. There are three reasons why we believe the commission can exercise its discretion in that manner. The first reason is the small size and the location of the disturbance within the upland buffer. Raul alluded to it a bit. Just to point it out, it's on the south side of the proposed structure here. You can actually see the existing tree line. So there's this area here, which is the 1,600 square foot area of upland thicket that will be disturbed by the project. That area is at least 120 feet from the salt marsh, and up to 150 feet. So it's in that range in terms of distance from the salt marsh. As Raul alluded to, that's a 2.5% increase in the development footprint on the property. So those two factors result in a substantial undisturbed upland buffer to the salt marsh as a result of the project. All this land in here. The second reason we believe the commission can exercise its discretion is the actual characteristics of that undisturbed buffer. The contours on the plan demonstrate that it's a very gently sloping topographic profile there, so there's minimal risk of any water that does flow over the surface of gaining additional velocity moving toward the salt marsh. It's generally a flat area. The soils in this area are well known to be porous, well drained, conducive to infiltrating stormwater during precipitation events, and the area is very densely vegetated. And I should just take a quick minute to describe the vegetation, which is essentially uniform throughout the upland buffer around the salt marsh. The understory is dominated by nearly a monoculture of bush honeysuckle. There are vines wrapped around the shrubs throughout, making it extraordinarily dense. And as I said, I describe it as an upland thicket. There's Japanese honeysuckle, Asiatic bittersweet, greenbrier, and grape I saw in there. It's about, 6 to 10 feet high during the growing season. Very dense. Almost no ground cover in the area. And there are scattered mature black cherries in the area and a single mature oak. The vegetation is important because it stabilizes the soil. Any water that was to move over any stormwater that was to move over the surface would certainly be slowed by the density of the vegetation there. It stabilizes the soils and minimizes potential erosion issues. Let's see. The third reason we believe the commission can exercise its discretion is the additional substantial mitigation measures that Raul described. The combined denitrifying septic system is obviously a significant improvement. There are substantial mitigation plantings and stormwater management features that have been added to the project, which together will provide further protection to the land and waters within the DCPC. Overall, the documentation provided with the notice of intent and the site plans demonstrate, in our opinion, that the project has an environmentally sensitive design to it. It's an improvement over the previous design and will not result in any adverse effects to the lands or waters within the DCPC. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd just like to add a few documents to the file. Since you've reviewed the old file, you're well aware of them. They're the same technical documents that were in the original Rift Road file. So it's the coastal sensitivity to sea level rise, focus on the Mid-Atlantic region, national vegetated buffer strips, hotspot to accelerated sea level rise on the Atlantic coast of North America, technical document on nitrogen loading from coastal watersheds to receiving estuaries, and vegetated buffers in the coastal zone, the same technical documents that were in the prior file.
Got it.
So I'm sure you're all very familiar with them. Couple of things. Brian, when you say it's a 2.5% increase, you mean over the entire lot and not over the existing area? Because the language was a little, one, you didn't kind of clarify that it was over the existing lot, because you do have almost a 49% increase over what you're clearing, what's currently cleared to what you are clearing.
Over the clearing, we're going from 3,250
To 48.
to 4,850.
So over the entire lot, you're saying that's 2.5?
Right.
You had it written down over the existing developed area. And just kind of going that, but I figured, just wanted to clarify that. Just a few things, staff does have concerns, obviously, with the enlargement of the septic, although getting rid of the cesspools is a great thing. You are enlarging the system, and you don't meet the performance standards of 10.0336. So just clarify in your narrative, you're well aware you don't meet that performance standard or that setback from the dune. Also, the alteration to the dune to install the septic system is concerning to the staff. We did check with the Board of Health. They said that they didn't have any record, but you're saying they approved it on Monday? Okay, great. So that takes that off. And you're increasing the flow by 2 bedrooms. You're going from the 5-bedroom to a 7-bedroom. Correct. Okay. You are correct. You do not meet the performance standards of 10397. The board will have to determine whether or not they want to exercise the discretion. The last hearing, they were very concerned about that 200-foot buffer, the DCPC, I mean, the 100-foot buffer for the salt marsh under FWR 1018, their jurisdiction ends at that 100-foot buffer. Within the DCPC, they are allowed to actually increase that protection, and I think the board felt very strongly about maintaining that protection at the last hearing. You are not providing a 15-foot building setback from the edge of the limit of work that is required in the DCPC regs. So that's 103910, and that does require And Mark just to, I think issue with the word substantial mitigation as one of the things that the commission should be looking at to exercise what you call their discretion. What substantial mitigation? The 150 square feet of mitigation to close up that gap in that corner of the house to the north?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's in addition to
The septic.
the septic system.
No, I understand. You said the septic,
Yeah.
but then you said also the substantial mitigation, and
Oh.
I wouldn't really call. I'll even give you the other 160 over there, but I wouldn't call that substantial.
There's some substance to it.
But those are the staff's only comments. I would, remind you that the DCPC is a very sensitive and protected area in the town of Falmouth.
Thank you.
Okay?
Mike?
The argument that the improved septic is important, is beneficial, I think is compelling to me. We have a garage that it wouldn't take too much of a storm event to see it scattered through our wetlands, and this would alleviate that problem. So I see those arguments for have been made and heard by me. We're adding 2 bedrooms, and parking in the summer, where would cars go?
Mr. Powers, there's a garage proposed under, because of the layout of the house. Basically, we're putting the garage on the level floor and the living space above, and there is an existing driveway there that's available.
But you're adding 2 bedrooms. One of those places is currently available. Now you're adding 2 bedrooms, 1 car, so I'm losing 1 parking place, I guess is the, and I want to know where that's coming from.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as you. The 2 new bedrooms are in the newly proposed structure.
Yeah,
So there's nothing changed. The 5 bedrooms that are across the street currently exist.
yeah.
So the new house will have a garage under, and there's a driveway that's going to go to the garage.
I would assume the person in the existing house is going to have the same number of cars he currently does, and you're taking away one of the places he had. The driveway that's now there. So I was there on a bad day, a lot of snow, no place to park. And I was a little worried about traffic, and so you're bringing that up, and there is a compelling argument. I think that this is an improvement, but I am worried about where people will go to park.
On the existing developed site, the septic system that's proposed is currently the parking area for the existing house. This area right here, it's parking spaces for 2 cars, and there's a driveway in here leading to that parking area. So this is the primary parking area for that residence.
Okay.
For the new construction, it is a proposed garage under. This is all in a floodplain zone A. So the finished floor for this proposed house is at elevation 22. The existing grades are around 11, 10-ish. So the level below the main house is going to be the garage and storage. So
Okay.
it has plenty of room for the cars for that residence.
So the parking over the new septic system is okay?
Correct.
You're good? Very good. End of my questions.
Just before I pass along, so the components, the tanks and such are H20? You're not
H20.
on the ruck fields. You are only on the components, the concrete pieces are what you'd be,
Right, the rock field will also be part of the driveway.
okay.
All these components closer to the road are within driveway and parking area.
And it-
And they can
waiting
be,
for it.
yep, they can be used for parking on top and driving over.
Russ?
No questions.
RUC is the system that they're putting in, it's the septic system.
Don't spell it wrong.
Mary?
I have I guess at least one question, and a couple comments. In respect to the shared, back up a second. In the event of a subdivision down the road into two properties, something that is addressed in Mr. McGrath's letter to the Board of Health, there would then, be shared dependence by two different property owners on a single septic system. And he talks in his letter about having an easement, which will document and establish that each user of the system has the legal ability to accomplish any necessary maintenance, repair, or upgrade. I would be more comfortable with each of these owners having the legal responsibility or obligation. And I don't know if that's something that is, it can be worked into an easement. I'm not familiar enough with title law and all that stuff. Can you address that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure if I can address it, I want to make sure I address all the components of your question. So right now, there are two lots as far as the town is concerned, so there won't be a future subdivision. They are subdivided. They just happen to be owned by the same family. I know what you're saying, that in the event that ownership changes in the
Right.
future and they're not in the same family, what would happen in that instance would be that the lawyers involved at that time, and if you want a condition, we can discuss doing it sooner, would have an easement that would give the proposed structure, that lot, the right, first of all, to discharge its effluent, because even though it's underground and we can't see it, they're actually using part of the other lot, and they would need an easement, the right to do that. The easement would also contain provisions that would allow them an independent right to go on to the other lot to fix the septic system in the event that owner didn't do that. And then lawyers will lawyer up and do what they need to do to address the financial components as how that happens. The system is proposed as a shared system, and there are regulations under the sanitary code that also require this so that public health is protected. And I would just submit that the Board of Health felt that this proposal met those requirements. Is that
That's
answering
fine.
your question?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Believe me, no one would buy the lot unless they had the right to dispose of the septic system.
Okay, I guess the other thing that I would just comment on, I think that given the inherent difficulty of this property, that this is a well-designed proposal, and it's got some things to recommend it. And I'm sure the rest of the board will just really have to consider carefully what we think the impact of the development will be. But for myself, I am concerned not as much by the footprint and what's proposed to be put there, but by the increased traffic and foot traffic to the salt marsh and that kind of thing, similar kind of thing that Mike was talking about with respect to cars. And I know the proposal is for it to be used as a summer rental, but we can't and we don't ever count on things like that about future use. And there were several mentions, I think it was in Mr. Manganara's report about how it's, going to have seasonal use. Maybe you also mentioned that a number of times. And I also think that that's not necessarily guaranteed to be the case. And just today, I went there today. I went to all 4 sites today, and much to my great surprise, this was the place where I encountered the most people, the most cars, the most activity of the 4 sites that we're hearing tonight. And it's a Wednesday in March, and
I don't know, when did you go down there? This afternoon?
this afternoon.
Yeah, the Platt family had come down from their house for this hearing, so they were there. I know Mr. Powers went as well. Just so you know, so we're very clear, we're not suggesting that the seasonal use we didn't use that to try to persuade the board. I was simply remarking that that's how the Platt family has actually used their property. I know that properties can be used fully. What I would submit is if your concern is as to parking, you could put a condition on it that says that cars must be parked only within the driveway. And obviously, when you approve a site plan, it can't be changed without coming back to you. It is only 2 bedrooms, so it's not, we're not asking for 3 or 4 or 5, so I would submit that use would be rather limited, presumably families with 1 car and kids, or maybe 2 families, two cars. As Mr. Manganello said, the buffer to the salt marsh is a thicket. It's almost impassable. It is really impassable unless you intend to get out there. The family uses the ocean. That's the other house is fixated and has a beautiful view and has a path down to the ocean. Their intent is to allow the renters to cross their property and go that way, not towards the salt marsh.
Well, I was able, with some snow there today, to walk down to the salt marsh.
I went in this
Without any
summer.
trouble at all.
Yeah, let me rephrase.
I'm not trying to, I'm kind of thinking out loud and just saying that these are my concerns, and I appreciate that, I'm glad to hear that they intend to invite their renters to come over to the bay side. But I'm just thinking that with another dwelling there, inevitably the salt marsh is going to be much more exposed to visitation than it has been.
And I won't argue that point. I just want to clarify, when I went out to the property, I did not go in the winter. I went in the summer. And when it grows in, it was very difficult to move in it at all.
Okay? I can believe it on
And
that.
again, we can have conditions if you'd like. One of the things that was not mentioned in the presentation is, and it's in the written materials, there's a proposed mulch berm around to limit runoff.
Yes.
You could propose maybe a symbolic fence to try to keep people from going into the buffer. That would be something that we would be very agreeable to.
That's all for me, thank you.
Well, as I'd like to put it, happy crap. That's all that stuff that's out there. And when you're a bull in a china shop looking for things, you can get through it. What a beautiful site. Congratulations for having that for 75 years. That's a testament to a dedicated family to being in a really quite lovely spot. I hope the applicant is aware of what a ruck system is, that it's just not something like a Title V you flush and forget. There is a maintenance program to it, and it's ongoing in perpetuity. As other design, I'm somewhat familiar with the ruck systems. Literally been inside every stinking tank that ever goes into these things. So as long as you're aware of that and know that they perform well when they're maintained, as does any kind of system that you're putting in there. I'm going to be bluntly honest, I find a lot of things compelling. I appreciate you being honest about what your intentions are for the building. Coming right forward and saying garage for income. I like that. In the narrative and all I did so much yellowing through your letter, through your stuff. I had time to read, which was both good and bad. It is this board's discretion. It is not a variance. It is something that we are compelled to do if we feel that the environment is not impacted, that the performance is appropriate for this site. This is a very different project than what was originally proposed. And on the front of one of these, I wrote, oh yeah, so yeah. It says a lot to the positive, but I have to go across the street. And Raul, I'm gonna ask you, on the front of the existing dwelling, it says brush, all in that area? I'm kinda stepping in it. On the water side?
Yep.
Unfortunately, those are funny-looking trees. It's not exactly brush. They've been maintained to a height. Historically, you can see it. And that was not something that was favorable. That's not something that is encouraged. Vista pruning is fine, but to completely create a topped-off, multiple width, that's a negative. That didn't sit well. Because going out there, you can't help but feel good walking out there. I mean, it's absolutely tremendous to walk through and look and take all this in. And yes, the salt marsh will get walked in, because I know if my grandson was over there, I'd be digging him out of there full of ticks. It's just, that's what they do. They explore these wonderful areas and learn to appreciate them, as I'm sure this family has for a number of years. Why do you call that brush?
That's how it was described when the surveyors
Okay.
located the edge of the vegetation, and
Okay.
that's how it made it into the plans.
All right. Well, I wouldn't exactly call it brush. At this point in time, I'd like to move this along. If there's no further discussion on the board,
Mr. Chairman, may I just address one thing that staff said?
please.
Just very briefly, Jen mentioned 10.03, that the septic system was not cited in compliance with the setbacks. And you've heard me say this before, there's a presumption created that when a system is not cited in compliance, that there'll be an adverse effect on your protected interests. But then the next paragraph down says, but the applicant may overcome that if you can show that the proposed system will have the same or less effect on the environment as a conventional Title V. And Holmes and McGrath in their written materials address that presumption, and with the 93% reduction in nitrogen loading, they take the position that the presumption's overcome. So I just want to say that that's in the record.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, but I had no issue with the septic because it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. And it's an existing condition that's being deleted, and a system that truly is far better than anything out there that exists. I would entertain a motion and then open up for comment.
I think a motion to close.
Second.
Okay, that would be Russell's motion, Mary's second. At this point in time, if anyone would like to comment on this project, just come up, identify yourself.
My name is Molly Cornell. I'm an abutter to this property. I've been an abutter for 65 years, so I know it very well. And I really do love this area of Black Beach. The development is clearly plays a role in the protection of the marsh resource area of the DCPC. I don't think that's disputed. The introduction section of the DCPC document describes the resource area as significant to matters of flood control, groundwater protection, storm damage, and that kind of thing, erosion. And I believe that the development plan for this Drift Road property adequately addresses these matters. However, I want to draw the attention to a further paragraph in the introductory section of DCPC, which states that this resource area contains nationally significant ecological and natural resources, including freshwater and tidal wetlands, waterfowl, shorebird and migratory bird habitat, rare species, shellfish, finfish, mudflats, barrier beach, all of that. The DCPC introduction also, it continues to say that additional development within the district is likely to result in the removal of vegetation, particularly wooded buffer areas bordering the marsh and associated wetlands. This will result in alteration of vegetative structure, species composition and distribution patterns, and habitat fragmentation that contributes to the direct loss of wildlife habitat and biodiversity. A newly constructed house surrounded by an area revegetated with indigenous plantings and surface runoff barrier is simply not the same from a wildlife habitat point of view as an undisturbed stand of trees in a wooded buffer. And while the total cumulative resource area impacts of this project are demonstrated to be as small as humanly possible, they are nevertheless real. I know that there's a provision in the DCPC that gives you, the commission, discretion to grant a waiver to the regulations, but I respectfully ask you to please consider the cumulative impact of allowing exceptions to the regulations, which are intended to protect this area, this very sensitive area as a whole. My belief is that every waiver leaves a tear in the fabric. With enough tears, the whole system starts to fall apart. So I urge you to uphold the intention of the DCPC and to use your discretion not to allow a waiver. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving forward. Next is 104 Waterside Drive, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a 3-bedroom house, install a Title V sewage disposal system, install restoration and mitigation plantings with all associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Absolutely. Good night. If I can hear you in here, that means that you're too close to the door. Please move down. Good evening, Barbara.
For the record, I'm Barbara Frappier with Warwick & Associates, representing the applicant, Peter Koulouris, who is here this evening. Also tonight is Greg Jones as the architect, and Maria Hickey Landscapes. This is a vacant property on Waterside Drive. The resource areas consist of land subject to coastal storm flowage, armored coastal bank, and land under ocean. Our proposal is to construct a single-family dwelling in this area here, septic system in the A zone, and do some substantial vegetation of the existing cleared area that is here. That's the short version. The house will be constructed to meet FEMA standards. It will be elevated on concrete piers. There is a section of the house that is in the AE flood zone. That area alone will be enclosed. All the rest of the piers will be open. The deck on the back of the house will be put on individual pilings without a perimeter footing, and theirs will be smaller. The major issue here for us is that your regulations under 1038 say that there can be no clearing of existing natural vegetation in a velocity flood zone. What we trust that we have demonstrated in the plan, as well as the landscape plan and the narrative, is that what we are doing here is improving the vegetated cover within the velocity flood zone, and at the same time improving the function of that area as for storm damage prevention and protection. We are going to have we have an area now of over 3,000 square feet of open area in the VE zone. When we're done, we will have almost 3,000 square feet of additional vegetation in the VE zone. We're only maintaining a 4-foot path from the back of the house to the top of the stone revetment. So in the entire VE zone, that's all that will be open. We are maintaining in the VE zone no more than a 10-foot cleared area around the house. The decking will be is going to be about 10 feet above grade, and it will have be open decking, allowing for 50 to 60% of sunlight penetration to below. So there'll be all vegetation beneath the decking. There is about an 81 square foot intrusion into the 100-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank. We are providing the 2-to-1 mitigation for that 81 square foot intrusion. Aside from that, there is no structure within the 100-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank. Again, the most significant aspect of this, I think, from your perspective, is that whether or not we have improved the function of the velocity flood zone, that the project as designed is in keeping with the intent and spirit of your regulations. And I would like to ask Maria Hickey to talk about what she intends to plant on the site and how she intends to do it.
I wasn't sure if anyone went out in the snow and walked the land.
Yes.
You did, all right.
Thank you.
I brought pictures just in case.
Thank you.
You did not.
It always helps.
Just to give you an overview of what it looks like. So, the existing forest does have a good amount of invasive vines and plantings that are climbing up the canopy of the trees, as you can see demonstrated in these two pictures that I just showed you. And when we are finished with the project, we will have removed any of those invasives because we want to heavily plant the whole site with native plantings, and we don't want the invasive plantings to overtake the native plants. So it does contain a mix of porcelain-berry vines, bittersweet, some honeysuckle, et cetera, what you typically find on any wooded lot around here. And there's a stone riprap wall that runs from the top of the bank down to the water. And we would like to heavily plant all the way up to the edge of that wall. Probably, you know, a 5 to 6 foot border of American beach grass, because the backside of the stones don't allow for the room of a root ball from a traditional native plant to put in, so that the beach grass will help prevent any erosion that currently you're having on the site. In the planting plan that I had submitted to you guys, it shows, actually a couple of them, I showed you layers of plantings, because what we're trying to do is revegetate a large portion of the open space to create a thicket of plantings to provide a natural habitat, you know, for the birds and bunnies and butterflies and that type of thing, and also at the same time prevent any erosion to the coastal bank. And we're going to use a mix of native shrubs and ground covers to plant within this area. Any trees that are displaced within the area of putting in the footings, we're going to replace, and I showed you on the planting plan, where we propose to put some oaks and other additional native trees. Any questions?
Thank you. Jen?
I would like to add though, Jen, just for the guy, for Tom's benefit, we call it brush.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Tom, I'd like to say that any job sites will be kept pristine by me, even if the 2 puppies are with me.
Thank you.
Like Barbara said, she was on, discussed this with her in the past. There is a provision in your regulations, it's 1039. C.
10:30,
Not
10:39,
39.
10:38.
38.
I'm sorry, 103840, that prohibits any vegetation removal, alteration in a velocity zone for the construction of new structures. And it just states it right there, you can all look it up. That said, the board will have to determine whether or not almost the swapping out of this area for the cleared area that currently exists on the property protects the resource area adequately. Other than that, all I have to say is, Barbara, I'm just gonna, I have to mention this too. You're not
What?
giving me a 10-foot limit of work on that building, are you?
Yes, I am.
No.
Didn't I just say that?
Forgot how to read scale. No, not even close, I got 5 feet.
Yeah,
Where's the 5 feet?
From the limit of work to the deck?
Oh, the deck, well, the deck, I didn't give you 10 feet on that, because the deck, it says in the narrative, all those deck footings are gonna be, it's gonna be up, and the footings are being dug by hand. I'm putting no equipment.
10 feet to a patio.
Well, I'm trying to keep it down.
I'm letting you know.
If you want 10 feet, then that's gonna,
Well, it gives these guys room to work. Don't give me that one.
I'll get small guys.
Okay. Something I always do. Some guys aren't gonna work with me, go that way.
No, well, no, here, I thought I was doing a good thing, because I didn't want to put the footings in, rather, and, I wanted, that's why I said
I'm just
to,
mentioning, Barbara.
all right, I'm just
Okay,
telling you,
that's all I'm
we
mentioning.
did say we would hand dig them,
Okay.
much of the chagrin of any
That's all.
potential builders.
That's it?
That's it. Oh, one other thing, no breakaway panels. Those
No,
will be
siree.
piled.
As you can see on Greg's drawings,
Okay.
there are covers here, but that section is in the A zone.
Okay.
This is all wide open,
Okay.
no
You'll
breakaways.
also know how I feel about breakaway panels.
Well, that's why you didn't get any.
I know, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike? I'm gonna come back to you.
No, I'm fine. I have, walking around was pretty well staked, so I think and it's a small lot, so you can't, I can't say I was lost, which I've been accused of. It's okay, I hold on, but, there's a significant number of trees that are coming down.
Yeah.
And they're not shown, I have.
Well, they're not 6 inches, so we don't
There
have.
are no 6-inch trees, is that your argument?
No, I'm just saying, we only locate 6-inch ones, so, if you want, I can give you, I can go back and, pull that number.
And the other point is, my whole take on that is, if the project moves forward, things have a way of disappearing if they're not shown on a plan. But we could clearly condition so that
That all of the
I'm not,
trees.
yeah, I mean, that's the idea of, I'm not accusing anybody of anything,
no,
but
I
I do
don't have any
know
issues with that.
things have been known to walk, even though they have roots.
Little mice come out in the middle of the night and move things.
Yeah, I know that happens. So, other than that, and
I don't have any problem going back and locating all those trees on a plan of record prior to the start of construction.
you're convinced that those deck posts, and I because they're going by hand, you can only get so deep, are gonna be okay in the velocity zone. We're not gonna have those things knocking down?
The architect says
You're
yes.
happy about that?
Would you
Then
like
I'm
to-
happy
like
with
to
that.
talk
If
to
you're
Brett?
happy, I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm just worried about it, that's all. No further question.
Thank you. Russ?
No questions.
Mary?
I'm sure you won't be surprised when you hear me say that I was thinking about the trees on the plan
Yeah.
also. And if I'm remembering correctly, isn't there, I don't know, I would think a bigger than 6-inch cedar right up on the coastal bank? On the,
I don't know if it's
maybe
on
I'm thinking of
their
the
lot or
wrong
not. Is it
property
right
at
in the
this
middle?
point.
It could be on the other side, it's a little, is it near the hot
Possibly
tub
on
side?
the next
Yeah.
lot? Okay, all right.
But I
Okay.
will do that. I will get every tree.
Yeah, that's good, thank you. That's all, thank you.
Again, this is the vista out front was quite good. I
Not
can
anymore.
understand- I can understand why even on a cold day, you could have a cup of coffee and look out there. It was a good day for me to go out. The lawn ornament that's there. Does that go with the lot? Is that
I
just,
don't know what's happening. I
planter.
sort of have my eye on it myself personally, but, that lawn ornament there is just as a distraction and to keep people from driving down there to
oh, okay,
party.
'cause
Huh.
it's there to stay if they don't watch out. Mother Earth
Be
is
moving
calling
into
it
my
back.
driveway.
When I walked up, where you're proposing to put the beach grass, it was real soft there.
Yeah.
It was real soft, and that was just, again, along that whole wall, not just specifically on this site. I think the layering of that, bringing in and transitioning into the brush area, it's,
The brush.
I see a definite benefit to getting that stabilized. And that's about all I got for it right now. So at this point in time,
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second.
we have Russell's motion, Mary's second. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to talk about this project? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is 368 Central Ave, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to demolish the existing house and construct and maintain a new single-family house with detached garage, install a pervious driveway, install a Title V sewage disposal system with all associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening. Thank you. Any comments at this time, Jen?
No, Chairman, I do not.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Bunker.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom Bunker, BSS Design. I've prepared this plan for Pam Peters. As the notice says, this is a request to tear down an existing house and rebuild it with a new one. The property, if you've been there, is just in the Minot section, and just north of the Minot section. There's a single-family house on it, which was built about 1945. Prior to 2008, there was about 1.5 acres of upland and substantial marsh frontage. Which time the 300 committee bought the property from the prior owner and subdivided it into shaded. The entire lot went down by this line here. It's marked as, from the 300 committee here. And the marsh went further north and further south as part of that whole property. The property that's involved in this application is only here surrounded by the wide gray line. It's 40,032 square feet. Does not include any wetland, no salt marsh, no water frontage, or anything like that. So they have eel pond out there, marsh frontage. The marsh is 24 to 60 feet wide, variable. Eel pond is tidal. In an eel pond and inland, there's a flood zone AE elevation 12, which covers pretty much all of the lot under development at this point. The only part that's not in the flood zone happens to be this area here. There are three sections of the property I've colored in the green there, which actually have a conservation restriction on them imposed by the 300 committee, which limits the location where any development can occur, and they also limited the size of the house and said that they will not allow an attached garage. So I have some limitations to work with here. Anyway, the entire area here, the driveway and at the house, is within that elevation 12 flood zone. It's a, from the marsh upland, it's a fairly small slope, generally less than 10%. There are a couple areas in there which, particularly down closer to the marsh, there's one here, a couple of areas which are maybe slightly more than 10%. The around the base of the existing house, it's greater than 10%. That, being in a flood zone, could be considered a coastal bank, but it's not within 100 feet of any other wetland resource area, not within the marsh, not within 100 feet of the marsh or the land subject to flooding, or, as I could tell, other areas. As I said, there's another small bit of perhaps coastal bank down there. As a coastal bank that's more than 100 feet from other resource areas, there is no A zone, and could be said to have a 100-foot B zone. The mitigation planting requirement is that if you do work in a B zone, the only planting required is to planting that would be required to vegetate the A zone. And because there's no A zone, I would say that there can be no planting requirement for it. The existing house is in this location right up 3 feet from the property line. It's in the flood zone. It'll be elevated. The floor is 1.6 feet above the flood zone. You require 1 foot, but we have to elevate a little higher even to get a little bit of room under there for the crawl space. So on the north side of the house, we'll have some flood vents up in there and to grade in. Basically, it's where the house is now. Leave a little, you call it a floodway, into the north side of the house, so we can have a crawl space that's deep enough for people to get in under the house for utility work. We are proposing fill in front of the house and around the south side of the house, but not at the garage. This fill, this location here, will be a maximum of about 2.2 feet deep. Roughly, it'll be the same, sort of the same characteristics of that area up there that could be called a coastal bank now. So you could look at it as though we're doing work, fill on a coastal bank, but we're actually increasing the length of the coastal bank. So it should be considered to be a good thing, providing more storm damage prevention. because of the height limitation of a detached garage or a detached accessory structure, it can only be 18 feet from the existing ground. So we're not allowed to place any fill under it, or that would impact the height of the structure itself. So that garage is sitting down on the existing ground level in that location, and that being in a flood zone, we'll have to have flood vents. Also, the house is 134 feet from the marsh, garage be 120 feet from the marsh. All of the limit of work is more than 100 feet from the marsh. That's the limit of work drawn in here. A zone of the marsh is down in this location. So all of the work is more than 100 feet from the marsh. There will be dry wells installed for any roof runoff. Yeah, that is, there'll be the driveway in there is a crushed stone or shell surface. That's another restriction by the 300 committee. There is about 100 feet of pavement going in partway, and the rest of it will be dirt, crushed stone, shell in there. That is the proposal. I'll take questions.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Mary, you're up.
I have no questions.
There you go.
Russ.
No questions.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. There's a grape bobber. Is that on the site, or is that in the restricted area in the south?
I probably removed that from the plan, thinking that my guy didn't tell me it was. I'd have to check on that. If it's in the restricted area, it will have to be taken out.
Yeah, well, I just didn't know where I couldn't tell you where I was. There's enough snow cover that
Like you said, you get lost sometimes.
I do, and on this one in the snow, I did, so that I'm fair enough. So I guess that's it. There was clearly some, along that pathway,
There were artifacts from the previous. Some things got removed, some didn't, by the 300 committee.
okay, including the bench down by the end of the existing path. There was a very V in that, comes down to the bench.
Yeah.
It's all little stuff. I'm happy with it.
You all set, Mike?
Okay.
Okay. There's a ton of ribbons around there.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
On the trees,
Yeah. Like,
they put them on there. I mean, it's mainly trees in there that they want to remove. That's what they are.
wow.
And the rhododendron also, big clumps.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was,
No, they can't remove all of them. Some of them, there are a few, there are a few that were in the restricted area. And we staked the restricted area and, told them they can't take down trees that are within that area.
the proposed garage, there's a square that's on the plan. What is that?
There was a slab, there was like a tent structure or something there.
Okay, it's under the snow right
Under,
now.
yeah.
'Cause I didn't see that. It looked like a lot of cutting down near the marsh. I don't know if that's, again, I got lost a little bit. Been walking down that path, there is quite a bit of stuff that's been,
I hadn't been there for a while until, the snow was gone and everything, but I'll have to talk to them about.
yeah.
I mean, if they're
there's-
cutting, some of it looks like it could be on 300 committee land too, which obviously
it
can't happen.
very well maybe, I just didn't know exactly where that transition was. You
Yard
realize,
debris.
yeah, there's
Yard debris.
the septic system going in. When I pulled in there, I parked at the street first and then realized that I could pull in. And you're gonna be pruning, because you got cement trucks, you got all kinds of big equipment that's gonna go in there. And I put here a lot of smash and trash. That's gonna be a chocolate mess. absolute chocolate mess. And I'm trying to think, usually the septic systems aren't, I don't know, you might want to protect that septic system depending on the progression of time. Because I can see a bunch of guys parking right on top of that just till this is done. This,
It would depend when they put it in. I mean, some people do put it in last. so
well, some do, but if it's not put in
not.
last, it'd be, I bet you it'd be more than one guy that would actually park where he shouldn't. Just to,
Yeah,
it
that's-
doesn't, it's no skin off my nose if they ruin your septic system, but it just might be something that you might wanna, depending on when they put it in. And that lot is gonna look a lot different than it does right now.
It is. It is.
Beautiful space, though.
Yep,
Beautiful spot.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And part of this, they got it from and through the 300 committee. And so, to some extent, I don't know how much Jessica will visit once in a while.
As long as, now, then, you crack that door, these restricted areas, as long as they're really aware of the do not zone. I don't know if we have to put some denote that somewhere on what you have, just some kind of markers. Because if you're saying, earlier you had said that they had some ribbons on trees.
That was before we staked, maybe it was covered or gone in the snow, but we had staked that restricted line when you first come through. We staked it through here, and so,
I think you're gonna have to restake it. I think you're gonna have to really make that, understood that that's bad, because I would definitely think that Jessica's or others would walk through to,
well, you're right about the big trucks. I mean, it's, even if they stay within the confines of where they should, things are gonna happen to branches and everything. It's gonna be different.
you bet. I know what kind of knuckleheads do that work. I'm one of them, and
How was I
that's-
gonna say that, right?
That's why that existing driveway, that's I just have a,
Well, we could put an order of conditions, could we? Mark those areas out,
Yeah,
or,
orange construction fence, that whole driveway to keep them out of the 300 committee's land. The 300 committee did submit a letter to the file. They've reviewed the plan, they've approved the plan. I don't know if they have had one of their stewards go out and review the property lately, but, you can require orange construction fencing along that driveway to protect the 300 committee's land, that would be.
I'm kind of in that group, just because on the southern side of the driveway,
Yeah.
that corner, I could just see, the pan has come up, the sidewall is in the way, and the drywall truck is backing in. Next thing you know,
driving onto
it's an issue, right? And, well, I'm just gonna put that over here, it's late in the day, we'll drop it over here, and I'll get to that first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, you didn't have your coffee, you forgot all about it, you know what I mean? So, I think they have to be made aware of that sensitivity, if you couldn't pick up on it. Outside of that, do we have enough information?
make a motion to close.
Second.
That'd be Russell's motion. Mike second. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to talk about this project? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Jen, we gonna do any orders this evening?
Yeah, we haven't looked at it.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Yes, I will.
Close it, correct? Close it.
That was-
under about
Yes.
the one we closed last.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
now we're gonna go with
Four.
orders of condition. The first is 342 Acapesket Road.
Hang on one second, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Just a late addition. Do you have the new
Mayberry,
Oh, yeah.
The species.
Corrections to the last names of the plant.
Right, and also, I think,
No, your mitigation calculations were corrected too, remember?
yes, but maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I thought there was something, in terms of increasing diversity, that both the notes for A and B were supposed to be the same with the greater number of species.
They are,
Okay,
you are correct, they are. Other than that, those are the only changes we had to the plan, and standard conditions, standard special conditions. I don't think there's anything unique to this property that needs to be
Right.
addressed.
entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve as discussed.
second?
That'd be Russell's motion. It's a toss-up. You can pick whomever.
Mike can have it.
The official scorer.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 50 Gardner Road.
The seawall.
Dave Martin's reconstruction of that corner of the seawall that's crumbling, using the same construction access as always, and his client is going to uproot the mitigation plantings he planted before, save them off to the side, and replant them when they were done. The only thing, same footprint, same height.
Right.
Do you want him to use maps of the wetland area?
I don't think they're gonna be doing that much. I think,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that sounded like a small machine going in there.
Okay.
I think we asked them that.
Yeah.
and it
Yeah,
was-
we did.
in the typical construction access, it was something that wasn't, it didn't have, historically, it hasn't disrupted a whole lot.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve as discussed.
Second?
That's Russell's motion. There is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 392 Quistit Ave.
This is the dock, just to straighten it out. Basically rebuild it, but to basically put it in its chapter 91 configuration. Remember how it's got the bend in it now? Now they're just gonna go straight out. And they.
Smaller.
Yeah.
Smaller, yeah.
Smaller, it's a larger float, but a smaller pier walkway, so the overall square footage of the dock is reduced.
Given what they're planning to do in terms of anchoring this to the pier instead of the bottom anchors, is this a float or a pier now?
No, it's a float.
Oh,
It's a float. And no, they do not have pilings out there. It's a float.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the smaller size is necessary because it's licensed to be 64 square feet.
Yeah.
Float is.
But
And
you guys, you know how we made the argument that the walkway, the pier
I-
itself is gonna be narrower?
Right.
Yes.
So that the overall square footage of the structure is
Less.
either reduced or the same,
It's less, yeah.
less.
That was the argument.
So,
So do you want to allow him the larger float?
That's what I
That's
was
where I'm
taking
at.
away from it, that there was a trade-off on that.
there is, but I mean, it's a velocity zone.
Yes, it is.
But you
And-
also,
And what they're talking about is, I mean, it's large, it's 400 some square feet.
Correct.
I think that's kind of a bit much.
I pointed it out to you.
Yeah,
You're on board.
I'm surprised that the conversation is going this way. I thought we were kind of all leaning towards requiring the smaller.
didn't we
Float.
have, because it was gonna be on the, wintered over,
It's got two pilings on the inside, not on the outside.
right, and it was gonna be wintered over on a mooring.
No.
No,
that was,
this
that
is
was-
just,
I'm sorry, I'm
it,
sorry.
it doesn't
I
go
stand corrected.
anywhere,
Yeah, I stand
which is
corrected.
why I'm questioning it as a float. I mean, floats are supposed to be moved to the upland.
And this, that was one of the,
that was
you are right,
Penn's
because
answer
then,
you were
yeah,
thinking of.
and then this was, at 12 by 16, it was,
It's like
Too
almost
big to-
300 feet,
yeah, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to,
unless they don't know how to add,
Huh.
just by the top.
I get 192. 12 by 6,
192?
12 by
Oh, yeah.
16 is 192.
Yeah, apparently I can't add.
But, I mean, the limit for anything in a velocity zone is 200.
Correct.
But, I mean, when we have piers, the limit is 100, that terminal section. And it's a velocity zone.
I'm trying to remember the conversation. What was the
Yeah.
reason why he wanted that?
I pointed out that the float was bigger.
Well, they want it because that's what they've got now. But the
Okay.
whole thing is out of conformity with their license.
Their argument, because the original float's supposed to be 8 by 16. This is 12 by 16. Staff pointed that out to you. David's argument was that if you take the
Because
entire
the-
square footage of the structure, because that the pier is going to be narrower than it currently exists, that the entire structure, if you take the whole square footage of the structure,
I
is
remember
actually
now.
less.
Yeah.
Right, but the licensing goes in pieces.
Yeah.
The float is,
No,
the
I
specifications
understand what
are
you're saying.
separate
I
from
point-
the
that's
pier.
why I pointed that out to the board.
And,
And it's your decision on whether or not you want to reduce that float to the 8 by 16 foot float, or allow them to keep 12 by 16 foot float.
yeah,
It is a velocity zone, there's 2 inside pylons holding that float there.
right. As I said, I'm just surprised. I thought that the way the hearing ended was that we were kind of agreeing or assuming that we were going to have the smaller float.
okay. Mike?
The argument is compelling to me that we have this structure that has a volume of material, and that 100-year event is what we're concerned about, and we have reduced that. We have a float that is still a float, and I think that's more subject to going away than the dock itself has. So we're, on the major event, we're gaining, and maybe on the less major event, we may be losing a few feet, and I'm impressed with the notion of let's reduce the size of the structure and I'm inclined to grant the applicant as submitted.
You know, I think that's a good idea.
You're inclined to grant what?
I'm inclined to go along with the applicant's request.
For the larger float?
For the larger float, giving us the smaller dock. That's my, but I can be compelled. If somebody wants to make an argument the other way, I'm more than willing to listen.
I think that would be a reasonable compromise to ask for 8. I agree with Mary, and I remember this conversation now.
We had the conversation.
Yeah.
Right, we did, and
I don't have a sense
I
of which way
can't-
it was going either way.
well, I
be
thought
quite
Dave
honest
Martin
with
knew what I was saying and was expecting this, but I cannot, of course,
The
say
larger float.
that, I mean, that's not really,
I honestly didn't have a
Germane,
sense of which way you guys were going with this last week, either way. I just pointed out the information.
Yes.
But everything you said was correct.
Well, we get the information, I'll put something up as a positive motion and we can vote here.
Yeah, on the original, it was 8 by 16, it was built at.
Right.
It never really was what it was presented to be.
No, and there's some other aspect of it that was greater than, refresh my memory here.
I think that's reasonably asked for.
This one.
A little, yeah, the 8 by 16.
If you'd like to make a motion, Mike, we can
I
entertain
think
it.
it's 4 feet, I don't think it's gonna kill anything.
I make a motion that we accept the plans as proposed.
With the 12-foot.
With the 12-foot.
We have a motion to accept the plan as proposed. Do I have a second? Do not have a,
Somebody second it?
Yeah, second.
Mary seconded it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion doesn't carry.
We need a motion to say what we are gonna do.
Right.
Yeah, make a motion to approve, but with an 8 by 16 float, and as discussed.
Second.
That'd be Russell's
Discussion?
motion. And Mary's second.
Discussion?
Sure.
Can we limit that to 96 square feet so that if the applicant wants to play with that, we're giving him an exact dimension? And if he wants to play with
Oh, I
that,
see what you're saying.
Yep,
So
Fine.
8 by 16 or 96 square feet?
yes.
That's the way you want to write it, Mike?
what is 8 by 96,
Well,
yeah.
yeah,
because
whatever
of
that
the-
comes out to.
Right,
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
saying, yeah, so that
Yeah,
it's,
I-
I don't,
I'm going
I don't
by
want to
what
engineer the
license
structure.
says, which is 8 by 16. I'm not disagreeing with you, but Tom brought up the option of 100.
That's fine.
That's
Um,
just the,
That,
8 by 16 or 100 square feet, got it.
that's fine. But if you keep going, I'll really be with you.
Wait a minute.
so that is.
8 by 16 is 128 now.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That was,
That's the
that's
rub.
just- Yeah, that's,
So let's,
why don't we stick with, yeah,
Why don't you stick with 8 by 16 and do it, open up another Pandora's?
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that would be,
Okay,
because
there we
that's
go.
on the original, yes,
So the motion is 8 by 16, correct?
yes,
8 by 16.
and that's been
To
seconded.
conform
That's been
with the
seconded by
original
me, yes.
Chapter 91 license.
Okay, any further discussion? And you're referencing the original chapter,
Chapter 91 license.
okay,
The float size, to conform the float size to the original Chapter 91.
Yes.
correct. Any further discussion on the board? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, next is 257 Sherwood Drive.
This was the amended request with the greatly reduced footprint.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, right.
yeah. This is the,
I make a motion to approve as discussed.
second.
With all, as amended, all your
Right.
standard and special conditions apply.
We got everything we wanted plus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Russell's motion. Mike's second. And any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Toss me that elastic.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There we go.
Russell's motion, Mary's second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Oh, gosh, this is going to be a lot longer than